Hey there! Welcome to A Million Makes. Today I am going to show you another alternative yarn that you can make if you're low on yarn or you want to just try something different. And that is yarn that is made out of fabric strips. Fabric strips can be used for a variety of projects. I think they would be amazing for a lot of baskets or to make rag rugs, but you can certainly try them for all kinds of knitting and crochet projects. And so today what I want to show you is not just how to cut fabric strips and the way I recommend you cut them so that your fabric will fray a lot less without you having to do anything extra, and also make it just a little bit easier to work with, in my opinion. So we're going to start with a fabric that's very commonly reused, which is a bed sheet, but this method can be used for any type of woven fabric. If you want to use a stretchy fabric like t-shirt fabric or any other type of stretchable jersey fabric, then the way you cut it won't make as much of a difference, but I'll go over that more in just a minute. Let's get started. So to demonstrate the different ways you can cut and put your fabric yarn together right here, I've cut a smaller piece out of a large bed sheet. So with everything I'm showing you, you can just imagine that you're going to do this with a larger piece of fabric at once if you have that, and that you do it all over a large table or even on the floor. Okay, so the most straightforward and possibly easy way to cut your strips is to just lay your fabric out like this and cut straight across over and over and over, however wide you want your fabric to be. That is completely fine. It's going to give you raw edges that are going to fray pretty easily, but for something like a rag rug or something else with this fabric yarn, it would not bother me. I would just know what I was getting into with this fraying. Now, if you're using stretchy fabric or t-shirt fabric here, that's not going to be as much of an issue for you. But if you want to cut straight across like this, let me just show you with these scissors what you can do. Because if you have a good pair of scissors like this, maybe a pair of sewing scissors or just some other pretty sharp scissors, then what you can do is start to cut along the grain. Move this over for you. You can start to cut along the grain, and then once you get a little bit in, you can hold it and you can slide the scissors right across. See how much time that can save you? Instead of just moving them over and over and over, you can just catch it and slide right across. Whoop, got a bubble there. All right. The key there is to be able to hold both sides at the same time. If you have a nice piece of heavy fabric, you may not need to hold it. But that's one way that you can save a lot of time if you do have a nice pair of scissors. Another thing that you can do if you are making something just kind of rustic and everything doesn't need to end up really polished, which is what, again, I'm kind of expecting if I'm using these strips, is to take the fabric and very evenly, with even pressure on both sides, you're going to rip it. You're just going to rip it straight down the grain of the fabric. Okay? Now, I got kind of a thinner piece by the time I was done, so I'm going to try that one more time. It can take some practice, but I want to at least show you guys me getting an even stretch. So I'm going to put all the weight down here, I'm going to hold it very evenly and rip. There we go. That was a lot better. So I ended up with a pretty even strip right here. Okay, so those are two ways that you can save yourself a lot of time if you're working with a woven fabric like this. If you're working with stretchy fabric or knit fabric, neither of those things are going to work because you don't have a woven grain in the fabric. Okay, so that's how I would cut this if I was cutting it straight across. But if you don't want a lot of fraying, if you would like to avoid that, and if you would like to possibly make this fabric yarn a little bit easier to work with, then let me show you another way of cutting it. Get our fabric out like this. Instead of cutting it straight across, now here I have a seam, so it's not raw, we're just going to ignore that. Instead of cutting it straight across, what you can do is you can cut your fabric on the bias. The bias means that you are cutting diagonally across the grain. So this woven fabric has threads in it going this way and this way. And if we cut on the bias, we are cutting more or less diagonally straight across here. Okay? What that does is it doesn't give certain threads the placement of being right up against the edge, so they're ready to just come off. And it also creates a fabric or a piece that's going to stretch more that way. So these are just some things that come up when you are sewing and working with fabric more. You can have more stretch in a piece if you just cut the fabric on the bias. But here we're going to apply it to creating our yarn. So to cut something on the bias, you don't need to just start cutting it diagonally across. What you can actually do is you can take a corner and you can fold it across so that you get a nice 45-degree angle in there. And I'm going to take it all the way over. So I'm going to fold it over until I have it all the way to the other edge here. You can see my edges are lined up, so I know I have a nice 45-degree angle right here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here and cut along the fold, trying not to pull on it so I get as even of a cut as I can without spending too much time on it. Going pretty quickly. All right, that looks pretty good. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this to make it easy right now, and I'm going to go in and cut a strip about as wide as I want my fabric yarn to be. And since I have 2 layers here, I'm going to cut them both at the same time. Obviously, you can fold your fabric to cut 2 pieces at once, no matter which direction you want to cut it. But using this method to create a bias cut also means that you're getting 2 at once for a while. So I could keep cutting a few strips until this corner is too small to be able to be practically used, and I can just throw the corner away. And if you have a really big piece of fabric, like a whole bed sheet, what you might find is you have just a little bit more to cut after you're done with your double layers. All right, so I'm going to put that away there, and now I have some bias layers cut. And like I said, these have a little bit of give to them, a little bit of stretch that these pieces just do not have. Okay, or they have a lot less of it. So the difference that this makes is that these are going to fray a lot more and a lot faster than these. In fact, with these, you may not get any fraying for a while. It's a lot harder. I'm pulling and I can't even get these little ends to come out for me because there's only ends right here. There's only ends sticking out this way and this way. There's not threads running right along here that are just ready to fall off. So let me crocheted with and show you the difference. This is a piece cut that I cut straight across like I showed you first and into chain stitches a couple times and then pulled it out. So I gave it just a little bit of wear and tear, and you can see how much it frayed just from doing that. So even though this is going to twist up some while you are crocheting it or knitting it, you can imagine that after a couple of washes, you're going to have a lot of fraying. That may be exactly what you're expecting. It's just something that you need to be aware of. If you do the bias strips, I think this is the one that I already crocheted up. I'm not sure. I have a few pieces over there. But I crocheted in the same way. I crocheted some chain stitches into one of these bias pieces the same way I did with this one and pulled it out a couple of times, just like 2 or 3 times. And I'm not sure if this is the one I did it with because there's no fraying at all, because there was no fraying when I did the chain stitches with the other one. It's still going to have some wear and tear over time, but it's not as much. I also found that this was a little bit easier to work with. I really think it was easier to work up with the hook. And for pieces this wide, by the way, I tried a K-hook, which was really tight with these, and I also tried an N-hook. Thanks so much for checking out this tutorial today. If it was helpful to you, please comment and let me know. I'd love to hear from you. And if you enjoyed this, please go ahead and subscribe, or you can also find me on the blog at ameliamakes.com, where you can find more tutorials and projects and all things crochet. So thank you so much for watching. Have a fantastic day.